Welcome to RNA. Today we have an interview with Catherine Shakdam. She is a Jewish British writer, commentator, and journalist with French roots. She is an expert on Middle East and radical Islam. She is former United Nations advisor for Yemen issues. Catherine Shakdam's visit to Iran several years ago sparked significant issues. During her visit, she established connections with high-ranking Iranian officials and had her work published on Ayatollah Khamenei's official website. She also met with Ebrahim Raisi, who was Iran's president at that time. Following her visit, Following her return, Shaktam authored an article for the Israel Times highlighting the rise of anti-Jewish sentiment and Iran's nuclear projects. Thank you for joining us, Catherine. It's always a pleasure and honor to meet you. Let's start with the latest event. Obviously, as you know, United States got involved in the conflict and hit Fordo with B-2 bombers. What does that mean to you?
Well, number one, I would like to say thank you, President Trump. That's the first thing. Look, I think that in recent history, I think Israel has had many friends and many enemies, but I think that Donald Trump's administration is by far, Israel's best friend. And by that, I don't mean that President Trump is doing Benjamin Netanyahu's bidding, not by a mile. He has understood something that, to my mind, escapes still Western capitals, and that is that the Iranian regime is a threat to the whole of humanity. So it's not just a threat to Israel or the Jewish world, or even to Iranians, or even the Middle Eastern region. It's a threat to anyone and everyone who wants to stand free and be able to choose how it is that they want to live their lives and make those choices for themselves. And this is something that is terrible because the United States is the only party to have entered the fray with Israel. So when I hear that, for example, French President Macron is still thinking and calling for de-escalation, is insanity. We knew, and they told us many times over, the nuclear agency told us that Iran could indeed, right now, as of yesterday and even the day before, build a bomb, a nuclear bomb at that. And still, Western capital wanted to negotiate. Now, Donald Trump did everything that he could to negotiate a peaceful resolution to that issue, making clear that he would not tolerate for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And the Iranian regime did what the Iranian regime always does, which is to lie and to try to play for time. And unfortunately, when it comes to Donald Trump, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, there was an end to that clock, and the end came yesterday. And so B-2 bombers went into the sky of Tehran only because Israel did not have the weapons that it needed to go so deep underground because the Fordo nuclear facilities are about 300 meters underground, and so it took a lot, and it took a B-2 bomber to get rid of that. And I'm glad that it happened because if anything, it actually shows that the Iranian regime is not indestructible, that it's not forever, that yes, it can be destroyed. And I think it gives hope to a great many people. And I'm really glad that it did. And I know I keep saying this, but because it's true.
Got it. Thank you so much. Well, indeed, we saw that President Trump tried to have a peaceful agreement, and he constantly was talking about that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, and he provided with the 60 days of time that they can get to a conclusion with an agreement or a deal with Iran. So I'm going to ask you another question, which since last night we saw the bombardment of the three nuclear sites in Iran, as soon as the President Donald Trump announced that Iran was drawing red line and actually making threats. Does it actually have, does Iran have the ability to hit back at the US in the region?
Yes, of course. I mean, they have the abilities, although I believe that Israel made that a lot smaller than it was, just a month ago. But that is not to say, look, we would be foolish to think that the Iranian regime cannot do harm. Of course it can. Um, I think that the nuclear threat, I wouldn't say is the least of our problems, but today has been taken care of. But it's just one of the threats that the Iranian regime can level at not just the United States in the region, but the whole world. Now, I've written a very important article, and I would really encourage people to go read it in the Jerusalem Center. And I talked about the Kamikaze Protocol. And this is a protocol that was set in place by the regime a while back that basically announces the ways, and there are many, to cause maximum harm should the regime face doomsday. Should they feel that it's about game over for them, they want to take down everybody. And before that, just a bit before that, what they want to do is to put Israel in a position where the world would blame Israel for creating potentially an environmental catastrophe. So they have weaponries and ballistic missiles that are positioned in very strategic places in Iran. A lot of them are near Ahwaz, actually. They want to hit dams. They want to pollute the water. There's many great things that may not know about, by the way, that they want to do in order to bring everyone down with them and cause irreparable damages to the entire region. And I think that you heard it when they talked about shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. They're not just talking about this, they're talking about potentially exploding oil refinery and create, again, an environmental catastrophe. And so the world, because we have seen how the world reacts whenever every time that Israel does something, Israel will be to blame. But Israel is not to blame. Israel, will do what is necessary, but Israel will not do crazy things that means harming millions and millions of people. The regime, however, has proven time and time again that it's more than willing to do so. It has tortured and butchered and violated and brutalized millions of people in Iran. And it will continue to do so unless someone stops them. And this someone today is Bibi. And this other someone today is President Trump. And I'm grateful for them.
Interesting. Thank you. Let me ask you actually another important question, which kind of you slightly talked about it. If Iran targets U.S. interests, or let's say if Iran blocks the Strait Hormuz, what's going to happen next?
Game over. It's like literally game over. Look, so far, Iran has had, I would say, the ear maybe of North Korea and China. I don't want to talk about Russia because Russia is different. And I do believe that there is a deal between Moscow and Jerusalem. I mean, it's quite clear because Moscow has done nothing. And why would they? Why would they side with a regime that is clearly contrary to its interests in the region? And by that, I mean to rejoin the international community. And Donald Trump, has signaled that he's willing to extend a hand in friendship to Vladimir Putin. And so I don't think that Vladimir Putin is in the mood to support bygone regime. That is Iran, of course. Now, if the strait was to be targeted, closed, whichever way they want to do it, I think that China will take offense because China needs energy and China is not in the business of losing business.
Right.
And so suddenly Iran would find itself very much isolated. The whole of Asia will turn actually against Iran. And also, I'd like to remind, the mullahs of Iran that there's this little thing called the Fifth Fleet of the seas of Bahrain. And I would not encourage anyone to really poke that bear. So if they want to see what the might of America's military capabilities look like, I think that Freud would like that little lapses of mine. Yeah, please close it. Close it and see what happens.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I kind of had, I was actually thinking about that. That was kind of unusual, like not unusual, let's say. I was thinking, or probably most of Iranians were thinking that like as soon as anything happens to Iran, Russia would get involved and
Why?
they will probably do something. But
Why would
as
that?
you,
Why would that? I mean, think
I'm
about it for a second. President Bashar al-Assad, rather late President Bashar al-Assad, or former, because he's not dead,
right,
pretty much gave up. As soon as al-Jolani showed up, he gave up. And I'm pretty sure that he negotiated a deal to save his life. I mean, the man, kept his head on his way to Moscow. So that tells you that great many people were involved to say, fine, we'll let you out on the condition that you speak. And I'm sure that he did. He did speak a great deal. And so he kept his head. Now, can you imagine having some kind of a reunion between Khamenei and Assad? How would that go? Not well.
Right.
Also, just think about it for a second. If Mossad could go and get certain people in the middle of Tehran, in a bunker that belongs to, Khamenei, in the middle of his complex, do you seriously think that they're going to have a problem getting Khamenei in Moscow? No. Does Putin wants to see Mossad operate under his nose and claim yet another victory? Not really. So I think he's going to tell the guy to stay away, well away from his borders. And it makes sense. It makes sense. I think that Mossad has demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that yes, it can, yes, it will. And don't poke. Don't poke.
Absolutely, I will get into that. I will have a question regarding to Mossad as well as we go on. Let me ask you this question. It's been about 10 days since Israel started attacking Iran.
Mhm.
Is Israel only targeting nuclear sites, or do they have other goals?
I mean, of course, you've seen it. I mean, when it started, first of all, it started off with getting rid of certain Hamas members. I don't think I need to name them. We all know them. And then it went on to targeting Iran's ability to defend its skies. And I think they've done that that was Mossad again. That set up a drone facility right under the nose of the Ayatollah, which I mean, I have to say, my hat off to you. And so they did that. And then after they went after ballistic missiles, they went after the factories, they went after the drone factories. So of
Yeah.
course, any site that could cause harm to either Israel or its allies' interests in the region or the Iranian people will be taken out, of course. And it's not limited to the nuclear facilities. Of course, that was the biggest target because let's be honest about it. If Iran were allowed to have a nuclear capacity, then what's the point of blowing up ballistic missile? Then there's no point because the biggest elephant in the room was still very much alive. And so they took care of this, but they needed Trump to do that. And so here we are today with, I wouldn't say a clean slate, but I don't think that the Irans of the Mullah is looking pretty good right now. And I don't think they're going to give up because such is the nature of the Scorpio. They're not going to give up. But
I
let's see
mean,
about that
like,
end one.
I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but like, if I want to be more clear with
Mm,
my question, um, true, they attack the drone factories and such, but
mm.
if we zoom in a little bit, we're seeing that beside the IRGC sites, they attacked Iranian army bases, but the most important one, they attacked police bases. Like, is there a like specific reason that they actually attack like
Of course,
police?
look, Israel is in the business of supporting a free Iran. It doesn't mean they're gonna enable, I mean,
Okay.
they're not gonna operate regime change. However, are they in the position to enable it? Of course. And so they understand that if anyone today from the opposition was to rise against the regime, the police stations and the police forces would be the first one to crack down on the opposition. And so Israel tried to help and to clear that out because obviously nobody wants to see dead civilians in the street. Look, Iranians have suffered, and I don't need to tell you that, suffered since 1979 under the yoke of the regime. It needs to end. It needs to end. But at the same time, Iranians do not have weapons. They do not have the ability or the weaponry that they need to go after the mullahs. And this regime is brutal and it's willing to use whatever against its people. We have seen it. I mean, since Mahsa Amini, I think it has been clear that countless people have died in the worst fashion possible. And so Israel wanted to, I mean, this is my read on things, wanted to make sure that, it would not happen again, or at least that if it was to happen, it would be so diminished that, few people would die. Look, it's about enabling the rest of the world to see what is going on in Iran and for the Iranian people to find a space in which they can move and decide for themselves what is it that they want for their future.
Um, right, but I mean, if Israel and United States they do not have at least a clear plan for regime change, like, so what's going to happen next? Because obviously we're seeing the regime is about to collapsing. I
Yes.
mean, so what would be next? What would be the next step?
Okay, so this
What
is a
we're
tricky
gonna see
one.
next?
Well, this is a tricky one because you see, the every time that the West has played regime change, whether in Afghanistan or in Libya, or I think that Iraq was the biggest failure, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why? A country cannot be liberated from a dictatorship from without, from the outside. You cannot have foreign boots on the ground telling a people, "I'm going to free you." Only the people from Iran can decide how, when, and what it will look like to be free. And this is important because freedom is earned by the courage of your boots, and the Iranian people will have to go get it. And this is not me saying or being patronizing and saying, "Oh, you go get your freedom. I don't owe you anything." Of course, as a Jew, I owe Iran everything because once upon a time, Iran, the Iranian people, Persia, helped us tremendously. And I'm here today breathing because they did that act of kindness. But we need to pay Iranians the respect and the honor to do it for themselves, because I don't want anyone to turn around one day and say, "Oh, we freed you." No, Iran will free itself from the evil that has polluted its skies and its air and its ground. And it's going to do it. The Iranian people have proven already, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they are some of the most courageous people on the planet. And they will do it. I mean, look, it has been a women-led revolution. Do you understand the strength of a woman in Iran? So that mothers and daughters and wives are willing to stand without any weapons, without anything to protect them, in front of the mullahs. I mean, it takes more than just guts or chutzpah. It's incredible to see, and I pay tribute to Iranian women to have had that courage and actually show the world what it looks like to be a warrior. Not just for your people, but for your family, because they know more than anyone else what it means to be a woman and live under the shadow of the mullahs. It's a terrible, terrible fate, and they're not willing to take it anymore. And so I think that what we need to do is sit down, sit back, and let the Iranians do it. Freedom is coming, and they will make it theirs.
Hopefully, I really hope so. Um, I was hearing lots of and lots of different perspectives and views, but I really appreciate your perspective of seeing the things, how like actually what's going on in Iran right now. My next question would be about Mossad. The biggest thing that actually we're seeing right now, the massive influence of Mossad in Iran. How do you see the role of Mossad or other intelligence agencies with
Okay.
what's actually going on?
Let me tell you a little story. I don't know if you see it on social media. There was a message that was sent, I think, by the regime, if not Khamenei himself, saying that, oh, his intelligence services had identified Mossad headquarters in Israel, and that they knew where all the agents were. And he was just like, and the head of Mossad answered, "Well, it's funny because they're all in Iran." It's kind of the situation. I think you summarized it well. Look, Mossad is one of, I mean, I'm not going to say one of the, in my mind, okay, this is just me talking, the best agency in the world in terms of how lethal it could be and how willing it is to defend not just Israelis, but the Jewish world. And we owe them a debt of gratitude, I think, for eternity. They are the most dedicated, patriotic, and courageous people that I have seen in my entire life. And I think if I had other lives, I will come back and say the same thing. Um, they have, I mean, it's insane. It's almost magical, I would say. How do you do this? I mean, look, they have done things in the past few months that no one thought even possible. No one even
Right.
dared, even imagined it. And yet they've done it. And the beepers were the least of all. So, yes, I mean, look, do they have agents and assets in Iran? Of course. Do they have assets and agents very close to Khamenei? Of course. I mean, look, if I was able, and I'm not a Mossad agent, if I was capable, me, on my, my little lonesome, to walk my way into Tehran, come out and do it again and again and again, speak to all those the people I spoke to, and leave to tell the tale, kind of tells you just how good they bloody are. Because I'm nothing next to them and they are everything. And so, look, come on. Yes, they are there. Yes, they have the ears to the ground. Yes, you won't see them coming either. And so I just say, sit back and watch. I mean, I'm going to crack the popcorn and just enjoy the show.
Interesting. Thank you, Catherine. Well, actually, my next question is about Ayatollah Khamenei.
Mhm.
The New York Times reported that Khamenei doesn't trust anyone at the moment,
Yes.
and only send messages to commanders through one single person. Do
Okay.
you think Mossad's influence reaches as far as Khamenei's inner circle? Like just like people are really just around him?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, unless he's talking to a pigeon and that the pigeon is like ferrying the messages, I don't think it's safe. I'm just going to put it that way.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Well, we'll get to my last question. What are the possible ways this war could end from your perspective? What's the most likely scenario for it to stop the war?
Um, the most likely, I'm going to be hopeful, okay? Because I do believe very strongly that if you put out into the universe hope and the best case scenario, somebody's going to listen and it's going to make it happen. I believe that this war will end when the Iranian people march into Tehran and demand their freedom and get rid of this regime once and for all. That I believe. And when you have your flag back, when you have your country back, and when you have your future back, and it needs to be owned by Iranians. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, it won't be. And you're going to have to find a consensus, but my advice would be this: do not allow for people to tell you what to do or how to do it. You go and choose it for yourself. It's important. It's your future. You have been told what to do for way too long for anyone to give you advice. No one can give you advice on what happens within your borders. They're yours. You could listen to people's friendly advice, but it doesn't mean you have to take it. Don't allow people to speak over you ever. And I've seen this on social media. People are literally telling Iranians how they should be conducting themselves or how they should be reading into the decision made by the regime, which I love because they're not in heaven prison. They don't know. So please do, people who are not Iranians, you got nothing to say unless you're being invited to actually make your opinion matter. Otherwise, just shut up, frankly. Um, but you're gonna do it because look, otherwise, what's gonna happen? It's gonna be a lengthy war. Israel at some point may stop. I mean, once Israel's targets have been taken out, it's not Israel's business to conduct regime change, not as it wants to, because it's not its place. This is for Iranians to decide. And I keep saying this because it's so very true. Iranians don't need Israel. They needed help. They needed hope. They needed someone to show they cared. And that has been done. And so I trust in the Iranian people. They will do what is necessary. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see that flag. Not the current one, the other one. I can't wait to see it in Tehran. I can't wait for the Israeli embassy to open in Tehran. I would like to be invited, please. And I would like to walk the streets of Tehran again, but this time minus the whole, regime.
Got it. Thank you so much, Catherine. Well, I'll tell you what, hopefully next time when I'm gonna have an interview with you, hopefully we're gonna do that in Iran and we're gonna see some peace at that country. And I hope the same thing, just as you say. Um, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so
Okay,
much for being with us.
my pleasure.
And I really appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
You take care.